listening to CaveRadioBroadcasting.com. The words and opinions you are about to hear are of the hosts and do not reflect the management of CaveRadioBroadcasting.com.
Good evening and welcome to Down the Rabbit Hole. Today is Thursday, December 8th, year of our Lord 2016. You're listening to a Gen Pop Media production. So, the roads are treacherous, so it's basically just me and Ken hanging out here for a few. Dave's got DiBiase had to work late. Catherine is doing Christmas pageant things, and Hooper's trapped on Telegraph in a wall of traffic. So what's up with you, Ken? How you been, man?
I've been all right.
Yeah?
Just been chilling.
Yeah? Any fun going on?
Was at a Lady Jane's on, what was it, Monday.
That never sucks.
With the riff.
That never sucks. You guys doing remote?
No, we didn't. We were giving away Harley Davidson. No, pretty nice one.
Nice. Did you get it?
No.
Damn it.
I can't participate in those things.
Damn. Well, if you can get the number, you can give it to me, and then we can, split it.
Right. No, it was I even had to read the rules about the whole thing, and it's they couldn't even trade the bike in to get cash. I was that sucks. I'm so if I'm some just person on the street that's going to come on, sweet, I'm going to win this bike, and then I'm going to sell it back, and blah, blah, blah.
Well, they could sell it themselves, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But, not back to, Harley or anything.
Yeah, Harley ain't giving you no cash.
Yeah. It was an $11,000 bike, but it was pretty nice.
Nice. That means Harley's got probably $3,000 into it. That's why they won't give you your money back.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was cool. It was their grand opening for Lady Jane's at 12 Mile and Grand River.
Nice. 12 Mile and Grand. Okay. Yeah, I know the area.
Yeah, basically in the little strip mall that they built there.
Okay.
So it was pretty cool.
You hear about that 40-car pileup?
Yeah,
outside of Fowlerville. Holy smokes!
It's it just started snowing. Are you serious right now?
I would be willing to bet my life. Well, maybe not my life, but I'd be willing to bet a substantial amount of whatever that it was started by someone in a 4-wheel drive vehicle doing 90.
Drive.
Doing 90. No, I'm thinking it's always a dude in a 4-wheeler. It used to always be a dude in a truck, but now it's always a dude in an SUV.
Right.
And they refuse to admit that the conditions on the road may not be optimal. So they're doing 200 miles an hour trying to get to work. That's tough. I heard a couple people died.
Yeah, it was
so far, 3?
Yeah, 3 so far.
That's tough, man.
Yeah, it's a shame.
And our hearts go out to those families. Especially if you weren't the ones who started the accident. Then I have even more sympathy for you.
And the people that got to pay a shitload of insurance.
Oh, yeah. Insurance companies are having a field day.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Michigan drivers.
Isn't that a one-way door? Insurance is awesome. Insurance is just wonderful. Let's see. Pay for years and years and years. Never get in an accident. And then the second, if you ever need to get any money back from them, just a smidgen of the tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars that you've put into them between all the insurance you have to have, then they double your rates.
Right.
Awesome racket. Awesome racket. Do you know, last time I heard that insurance companies actually do not report to I believe, NASDAQ? They don't report their profits, so they're not included in, the most profitable companies because, people would freak out.
Really?
Yeah, and that's the way it was 7 or 8 years ago. I haven't looked into it recently.
Like I said, it explains some of the 2 accidents I've ever been in my life. Never got deducted.
Yeah, right.
Only my DUI. Only when I had a DUI, they boosted that up a bit, and now it's they took it. It's off my record from the insurance company. I'm sweet,
nice. They actually your insurance actually went down.
Yeah. Now
I've never seen that happen.
It finally went down after being penalized for my DUI.
I've never. You know they jack your rates if your credit score's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there goes me then.
I mean, that's just awesome. You know what I love? I love late fees because there are some people out there who just refuse to pay their bills regardless. But there are many of us. It's been tough the last several years.
Right.
And sometimes it's hard to juggle. Everybody wants their money. You don't have the same window. I mean, shit. I remember when I used to get You could go 2 months out on an electric bill, and they're just starting to call you,
Right.
Now it's like you're 10 days past the due date. You already get the shut-off notice, and there's like a dude parked in a DTE truck in front of your house, man.
Ready to turn off your electrical.
Yeah, and it's like, so there's no wiggle room anymore. There's no extra window. And then on top of it, they're going to charge you late fees. It's like, if I didn't have the money to pay the bill, you think I got the money to pay the bill plus the late fees? Bankers. Well,
especially with the taxes, with the penalized, you get for not having health insurance.
Oh yeah, that's great. Well, hopefully that's going to end in January, right?
Well, from my understanding, that Trump kind of wants to keep that going. I was like, what?
Well, the penalty or Obamacare?
No, I think the penalty. It was like, I don't know about all that.
Yeah, I'm going to give the guy time to get in there, and I don't think we should be penalized for not being able to afford health insurance.
Right.
Because it's off the charts. I was just having a conversation with some guys at the shop the other day, and we were talking about, health care. And it's like, health care is just insane. And they jack the prices up that they charge the people who can afford it to pay for the people who can't afford it.
Yeah.
It's like, why don't we regulate healthcare and big pharma?
Well, I know
why is an EpiPen $800?
I know it helped a lot with my mother being in the hospital for the last 2 months.
What do you mean?
Like, because she was in the hospital for kidney stones, and then after that, it was after they finally got all the kidney stones, kidney wasn't doing all that great.
Ugh.
So she was in and out of the hospital. I mean, there was times that she was in there for 2 weeks, and then just for a week.
That's tough.
It was like in and out for the last 2 months, and it was bad. But I mean, at least the insurance covered it a bit.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, it has its uses. It doesn't do a lot for you every day, but it's kind of
like me. It's like I hardly have a reason to go to the hospital.
No, I hear you. I hear you, man.
Knock on wood, but
yeah.
It's like, what do I need it for if I have no use of going?
Exactly. Well, insurance, what bothers me about insurance is it's a fear tactic. I mean, they've got insurance for everything. They've got insurance for your iPhone. They've got insurance for anything you purchase on Amazon.
Yeah, like I got $100 insurance for my phone.
Yeah.
Just in case if it breaks and everything. But the phone cover I have is indestructible, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. I got a OtterBox Defender.
That's what I got.
My favorite cell phone case out there. And yeah, I mean, but it's fear. But then again, when it's not mine, like when I pick up the wife the new iPhone 7 and it's like, a $37,000 phone.
Yeah.
It's like, is it $10
Which
a month
only costs
for
them like
insurance?
$100 to make.
Right. Right. It only costs Verizon, $110. Yeah, it's crazy. I hate the whole fear thing with insurance. I mean, you should have insurance on your house. You should have insurance on your car. But so many other insurances that they've come up with in the last 15, 20 years, it's all just based on for what if?
Yeah, especially like in different states. Like, okay, Texas, Tornado Valley or Tornado Alley. You got to have insurance for that, of course.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then California, earthquakes.
Right.
Florida, hurricanes. That whole East Coast, the hurricanes. It's just... Then all of a sudden, it's like you live in Hawaii. Oh, you got to have volcano insurance.
Oh,
now soon to be zombie insurance.
Yeah, right.
Zombie apocalypse insurance.
That huge flood that happened 2 years ago.
Oh yeah, down in.
It was all down. It was Westland, downriver.
Oh yeah.
The huge flood that happened. How many? I mean, it rained like crazy. You have any idea how many of my friends? That was the time they found out that that flood insurance got dropped off of their homeowner's insurance policy without them realizing it. I mean, it's a racket, man.
Especially for the people that live over by Hines Park, that floods constantly.
Yeah. I don't live far from there, but luckily for me, the way my neighborhood was constructed, mine's the highest street. Every other street goes down from mine, so we've been extremely lucky. We did have some sewer issues a couple years ago, but that was actually internal.
Yeah, like my cousin used to live right over there, right across Warren from me. And anytime it flooded, we'd take his little raft down there.
Yeah.
And start,
Oh, yeah, when we were kids.
Canoeing and everything.
Absolutely. Yeah, I grew up at Merriman Ann Arbor Trail, so.
Oh, okay.
we were down there all the time when it was flooded. That was a blast, especially in the summer when it was hot.
Yeah.
When it was crazy hot.
Go swimming in sometimes.
Yep. I'm sure it wasn't very sanitary. Well, it's probably more sanitary 20 years ago than it is now.
Right.
Or actually, for me, it would be more than 20 years ago. Yep. So we're Christian Dreheim. You know Chris from the Infatuations.
Yeah,
my buddy Chris. Yeah, he's been busting my chops. He's been listening to the show. So if you're listening, Chris, I say hi. He's been busting my chops. He's been trying to get me to say pillow talk. So he wanted me to do that.
Well, I think I'll take this Infatuations song out of here then.
Yeah. Why don't you drop that?
I'm just joking, Chris.
Drop that. He wanted me. He thinks we are that I am the Alan Allman of conspiracy theory talk show hosts.
Who thinks that?
My buddy Chris. Chris from the Infatuations. You know Chris.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So he's been trying to get me to do pillow talk on the air. Chris, why don't you call in?
Pillow talk.
Chris, why don't you give us a call at 313-879-5059.
Is Christian a conspiracy theorist?
Well, there's definitely some conspiracies. He doesn't realize they're conspiracies, but yeah.
People in music are...
Well, we're either one way or the other. We're either tuned in or we're completely annoying.
Yeah, it was... I was kind of surprised at how open the whole artistic community is to the fact that our government is run by a few murderous thugs. Some baby sacrificing thugs.
For those that want to call in, that number is 313-879-5059.
I like the callers that earn it.
I like the callers. I'll talk to anybody right now, to be honest with you.
So, how you been?
Traffic, awesome. Awesome.
Dude, it's like, today I actually probably left earlier than I've ever left. It's like people are driving like it just snowed in Arizona for the first time.
It's either one way or the other. They're either doing 100 on ice or the pavement's dry and they're doing 20.
It's Michigan. Come on, man. We know how to handle this. Let's go, people. So,
Kenny and I were talking about that. Did you hear about that 40-car pileup out by Fowlerville?
Yeah, I just heard.
Which their excuse was, I wasn't ready for it.
Have you ever?
You live in Fowlerville, dude. You should be ready for it.
I've actually been in one of those before, and you just can't stop. By the time you see it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It was.
I've never actually been in one, but I got trapped in the fallout from one. I was traveling back from South Carolina on I-75, and some dude in a tractor trailer must have fallen asleep because he kind of went off the road and took out a bridge.
Holy crap.
And I was just trapped. There was nowhere to go. People were out playing volleyball in the weekend, and I was irritated because I just wanted to get home,
Thanks for my Red Bull and
no problem.
Other treats.
Got you covered.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were getting my updates on the way up here. And by the way, we're not...
Yeah, actually, I did. I was just trying to drive because it was a little slippery. And so I decided to not... Because, I never text and drive. Well,
I know. I was getting worried. I was about to make some calls here and be like, hey,
I rolled in about
5:57.
And Ken's like, I was going to start calling you guys.
Yeah, Kenny, unless no one's here by 6:30, the show's still on.
Oh, we got a call.
Oh. Welcome, caller.
What's up, Pillow Talk?
What's going on, Christian Dreheim?
You sound so sexy on the radio, sir.
We have rock and roll royalty in Detroit on the phone. We have Christian Dreheim from the Infatuations.
Oh, I don't know about all that, man.
It's kind of true. Like
in my book, brother, you're the only one of us still pretty much the only one of us still playing.
When I talk about how I know Christian from the Infatuations, and I've said this before, people are like, oh my God, you know the Infatuations? I'm like, well, I mean, I know them through you, not, but they're definitely...
Howard knows me as that annoying guy that showed up at the bar with flyers all the time.
The secrets to
dude. No, dude, it's even more than that. You're the long-haired kid that hung out with Scarcella at the Ritz. That's like where we met.
Oh, was it at the Ritz? No kidding.
Oh, yeah,
wow.
Dude. It was like a Skid Row show, and you were like 11.
Something like that. Yeah, I definitely wasn't driving a car.
Yeah.
Hey, Christian, when did you know that you wanted to do music? Was this something you knew?
When I
was
went
like
over to my buddy Eric Lato's house, he
Yeah.
had a Gibson SG, a Trainer half stack, and a Ross distortion pedal, which eventually I got that
Nice.
guitar and that pedal by trading my Nintendo and Iron Maiden records.
Oh, I would have just
So
gave
that
the
was probably like
Nintendo.
1988 or 87.
How-
And then
how
I think
old were you
around
at the
89
time?
is when I started playing.
How old were you at that time?
I think by the time I started playing, it was like right around 14 or 15, like in between.
So it wasn't much after that we met then.
Mm-mm.
'Cause
No,
it was
like,
late
I was
80s when
playing,
we met.
Yeah, yep, probably 89.
There's something that happens. Like it's this, and I'm more referring to it as an observer, not that it happened to me, but you get this feeling at a young age, and you're driven to master something. And he's good. Christian's good at what he
Yeah,
does.
he's good. He's a good dude, man. Good
Oh, you guys
player.
are too kind, man. I'm
we
really
love
good
you,
at
Christian.
surrounding myself with the best people. That's what I'm good at.
That is a talent all its own, brother.
Yeah, dude. If this rock and roll thing
Hey,
doesn't work out,
The goal
politics,
of my band is for me to be the worst one in it.
Dude, have I told you
Ooh,
that?
that's actually
that's
a
like
winning-
that's been my line forever.
That's
Did I compare
that's it.
that with you, or do we think that much alike?
I don't really have to worry about those guys. I just have to have my shit together.
That's what I'm saying.
most people don't have the inner confidence to surround themselves with people like that. They'd rather surround themselves with people that are going to
That
make
they-
them feel
right,
more
right,
dominant or advanced over.
Yeah, but I
That's,
think Chris and I both have not by design, but I think there was a time. I'm sure Chris can speak for himself, but I know there was a time when I was the best guy in my band, and that band kind of blew. You know, and so it's like as you get older, you start playing with better players, you get on par with you, and then like I said, I'm totally on board with Christian. I've been saying that for years. I want to be the worst member of my band because then then I know if I hold up my end, my band's gonna rock.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If I'm not the worst guy in my band, the person that is the worst person in the band has a really rough time.
Yep.
They got to deal with me
So
constantly.
Christian is the
So-
line in the sand of the Infatuations.
And I got to hand that.
Yeah,
that-
fortunately for me, I've always been on that one side of it, so it's been easy.
Yeah, I got to hand that moniker over when I started playing with Circo, because as hard as I was on everybody, I didn't even have to open my mouth. That dude was twice as hard on everybody.
Yeah, oh yeah,
He's super talented musician, very professional, unbelievable perfectionist. And not only does he hold himself to those standards, he holds everybody else too.
Yeah, man.
I say we.
I miss Sean. Let's call him. Let's get him on the phone too.
He's probably playing daddy. Sloan's probably running around the place.
All right.
So, Christian, you're officially on a conspiracy show.
You're now officially on a list.
I know you guys have you guys got the best vocalist for conspiracy theory. I mean, like, yeah,
Howard.
yeah.
I know, dude.
The Alan Alda of conspiracy theory.
No.
He's been busting my chops with pillow talk crap for the last couple of weeks.
You've got a radio
I'm
voice.
sorry, Alan Alden.
I got a
think
face
I was
for
confusing
radio,
you with the guy
too.
from MASH.
Yeah, right.
Alan
Alan
Alda.
Allman is the pillow talk.
All right, so Christian, are there any conspiracies out there that you privately foster that you have your own questions about? Where are you in the whole gamut?
Yeah,
of,
what do you buy?
I'm in the whole conspiracy theory of just keeping my own business together.
That's not a
But
conspiracy.
as far
That's
as,
just a,
yeah, I know that's just more everyday life, right? But I'm not really so much into all those conspiracy theories. I think there's a lot of bad information being spread around, and it's really dangerous.
I'm not gonna disagree with
There
you
may
there.
be. I'm sure there's validity to some things over time, but I think it's really got to be put to the test. And there's a lot of recklessness going around and a lot of manipulation going around right now. I think Alex Jones is a very dangerous man.
he's in a position
Yeah.
to be very dangerous, certainly. And if there really was an evil cabal behind all of this, I'm sure they would have thought of putting guys like Alex Jones in
Yep.
position, and when needed, I mean, they're just pawns ready to be moved. But
I mean, at the end of the day, somebody starts getting their thing rolling, right? And next thing you know, they're making some loot at it. So, all right, how do we turn it up? I mean, look what Trump's doing. He's like going to have, some crazy circus for his inauguration day. He's got the WWF lady running the SBA. It's like, what is this really happening right now?
Yep,
Hey.
Linda McMahon.
Sort of I'm shaking my head, and then just the big thing about this, he comes out championing himself to the guy that saved all these jobs for Carrier, and then the union boss had to let folks know all these jobs aren't saved. There's 550 people losing their jobs still, so that's one thing to hear in February. You're losing your job, then to think you got it back for a minute, that sense of hope and everything, that have it ripped away, that's awful, man. And this guy, I think we're going to see a lot more of this stuff coming. So, and I think if it wasn't for guys like Alex Jones, Steve Bannon, and also the Tea Party in general, I don't think this man would have had a shot. And the Tea Party started because a black man was elected to office who had a Muslim-sounding name, or maybe it is a Muslim name, but who cares what religion someone is? I don't think it should be involved in anything that has to do with our government or our schools at all. That's my personal feeling, but I'm probably a little more on the agnostic side of things. So if I did subscribe to an organized religion, I think I'd have to be a Buddhist. Otherwise, I'd just be, probably. Yeah, otherwise, I'd be an extremist. You know what I mean?
Well, organized religion in itself is not a good thing.
There's not a single organized. There's no organized religion that's right. If you think you're in the right one and the other ones are in the right, none of them are right.
Well, if you're, the whole thing about religion is man-made. So there's a huge difference between religion and faith. And if you happen to follow the faith that we happen to follow, if you're thinking, well, I think it's better to be a Baptist than be a Lutheran, your faith isn't very strong. You're not paying attention. So that's so many people get diverted and get tricked by the doctrine of man masquerading as the Word of God, and it's just as dangerous.
Do you think it's possible that somebody's super super crazy, like they put the super conservative folks, super religious, they put it in everything that they're doing? I mean, do you think it's possible, now that they're so pissed about a black man playing Santa at the Mall of America, do you think it's possible once they figure out that Jesus was an Arab Jew, that their heads will just explode and we'll have a much more peaceful place?
I'm not going to argue with you there. I mean,
frankly, I think there's a very good chance Jesus, if we end up seeing him one day, he very easily could look like a black person.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was born in the Middle East.
If you think about it,
right?
If Satan's real,
guy.
In Iraq, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if that's what they're upset. First of all, if you're coming off and you're spouting racism in the name of Christianity, I got news for you. You're not Christian.
That's not what Jesus would do.
Exactly. That's not what Jesus would do. And it's just like those morons at the Westboro Baptist Church that are going.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
That are going out there.
They've got to be crisis actors.
We think they're crisis actors and disinformation agents, but
Hey, wait, guys, check this out.
Sounds like a cat.
You hear it? Marvin.
That's his buddy, his good buddy.
That's Marvin. He just wanted to chime in.
Yeah, how can you be Christian and then go out and protest the funeral of someone who died in a war defending your country? They're just insane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, either they're totally made up characters,
They have to be. They're too ridiculous.
They truly are crazy, and shame on CNN for giving them airtime, because that does not represent anything. But people come home and put on their TVs, and then they, I didn't know about this Black Santa thing that Christian just brought up. You know what? I
hadn't heard about it yet.
Turn off that freaking
television. Oh my goodness!
The
comments online on the news stories and the Facebook are just awful.
Well, the first thing you got to do is just stay off Facebook. It'll ruin your life. Hey, since we got you on the line, I want to talk about one of the things I wanted to talk about today and get your opinion on, because it's a musical thing. So did you see anything about? I'm sorry, I can't even stand these people. This couple from Minnesota, these wonderful millennials that decided the song "Baby It's Cold Outside" advocates date rape.
No, I haven't heard about this.
Yeah. So there's these two millennials, and the type of couple, because basically the man, he's no man. Okay, she's in charge, and she's an ultra feminist. and they have decided that little line in there where they're being playful and she's like, "Ooh, what's in my drink?" The part where they're joking and he's kind of like, "Come on, baby, it's cold outside," doing that thing, and they've decided that the "what's in my drink" thing to their generation screams roofie, so therefore the song advocates date rape, but it just so happens they've recorded their own version of it and have been on CNN and a bunch of other major news stations.
Okay.
So I'm sure they're going to donate all the money, all the proceeds they make from that to go against abused women. I'm sure. I mean, because they're famous for.
Hold on, did I miss something in here? Do they have like a musical project outside of this song, or is just everything revolving around this one song?
You know what? I didn't. The backstory I read didn't go that far into it, and I didn't have time to do more research today. I just read an article on.
Wow, I can't wait to hear more about this.
I mean, if they recorded their own version, they're obviously singers.
Well, it's kind of like, that reminds me of one of those things, like if you go back to the early 80s and, there was I think a kid who had killed himself, and somehow the parents tried to blame Ozzy Osbourne because of the song Suicide Solution.
Exactly.
And I just remember thinking, like, how do you blame a song for that? I mean, that's what? I mean, if we can't, that's art. I don't know. It's not, and it didn't seem like it was a mean-spirited song either.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they're attacking Baby, It's Cold Outside. I mean, have you listened to some of the rap that's going on?
Right. Oh, right.
Yeah. I mean, some of the extreme metal, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, I guess I don't really get the reference to how that is. I guess would need to look at the lyrics and try to see how they're coming at that. But I'm just having a hard time with it. Maybe just right now I am. God, I can't tell you the song word for word, and I can't really picture the context. But I can tell you I've heard that song a bazillion times and never had any sort of.
Well, and I can almost guarantee you that the guy who wrote the song, it had nothing to do with date rape. But because they've decided it makes them feel like it must be about date rape, it's about date rape. I don't know, man. It's like, wow. It just blew me away.
Yeah, I don't think any one song on a micro level could ever really be blamed for something like that. However, you take the whole menu of music we've had over the last 50 years, and it has definitely contributed to a decline in morality, a rise in crime. So, but I totally understand.
Yeah, but which came first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean? So if that's a subjective thing, because as music goes on, where there's new innovations with technology and things, it just seems like musicianship sometimes in certain areas suffers. And I think a lot of it starts in schools. You start cutting those education programs, we're going to have much worse than Nickelback. You know what I mean? I mean, it's going to be the Nickelback of laptops.
Well, they've had the argument: does art imitate life, or does life imitate art? And there actually is a consensus about that opinion, which is one of the most subjective things you could ask someone. Right. But by and large, and I probably just went looking for that answer one day just for the fun of it to see what people think, and apparently somewhere along the way there are a few books have been written about this, but that life imitates art, which I find very interesting.
I agree.
All these.
Well, I think that okay, so we'll talk about rap and some of the stuff that went down in the 80s and 90s. I think that a lot of those dudes were living that lifestyle. They were from rough neighborhoods. They were drug dealers.
Any other genre of music too, right? So these guys wrote from what their experiences were,
right.
And then it became a popular thing to do, and then a bunch of people jumped on the bandwagon, and you had people that were gangster rap that didn't live that lifestyle. They grew up in the suburbs or whatever. They probably loaded sometimes.
Ouch, he gets right on Detroit's own Eminem. Dude.
What's that?
Get right on Eminem. What's up with that?
Did Christian?
I can't hear you.
Did he grow up?
Oh, I said you dug right into Eminem.
What do you mean?
Well, he didn't.
Eminem, he lived that life.
Did he?
Kid Rock didn't. Kid Rock grew up in Romeo and Kid Rock's house is for sale for like $1.3 million right now. Yeah, Eminem grew up in a really, really volatile situation. Got his ass kicked in school a lot too. He grew up like on the, I guess the outskirts of Detroit, maybe a little bit of time in Detroit too. But he's definitely not from any sort of. He came from a rough background, man.
No, I did not realize that.
Yeah. that he did not have a pretty childhood.
I think
Why do you think he's so pissed off, man? Woo.
Thought maybe it was that haircut.
No, that came after.
That's
You should have seen the one he had in school. He had a mullet.
right. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh,
did?
no.
His high school pictures floating around online somewhere. He had a mullet, just a little baby one.
Well, hey man, we're gonna get off and get on to our topic. But thanks for calling in. You got to come by the studio sometime and sit in. We'll give you the topic ahead of time and
All
shoot
right,
it.
that sounds good.
Take
Thanks
care,
for letting me
brother.
ramble.
Yeah, no problem, man. You take care, man.
All right, fellas. Take care.
Bye.
See you, Christian. He's right about one thing, and that is there is a lot of disinformation out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm coming across so much of it, going back and getting and verifying these citations, because this book that I've been talking about now for some time, the 401 book. There were a few quotes in there that I actually had to remove because I could not find their source. Now, it doesn't mean that it wasn't actually said. It just, but somewhere I could not find a citation for.
Right, and the farther back you go, the harder it is to find. I mean, if something was said in the last 10 years, if you can't find the citation, odds are it wasn't said because of the way everything's recorded somewhere now. But when you're going back 100 years or 50 years, even into the 60s and before that, it's going to be a little more difficult.
This is where I talked last week about newspapers.com, because if you do a search for a quote on Google, you'll get a lot of inspirational websites that'll have the quote unattributed.
Right.
It'll just say,
right.
Like there's one that I finally solved just last night was Woodrow Wilson's quote where he says, it's along the lines of, "I'm a most unhappy man. I've unwittingly ruined my country. Basically all the power in the United States is in the hands of a few people that control credit." Well, he did say all those things, but
Not in that order.
The first two sentences are completely out of context. Because in fact, I'll just find it for you. He actually wasn't talking about. I actually think the more I research Woodrow Wilson, that he was essentially a card-carrying member of that little friendly group we know as the Illuminati, or what they've had lots of different names throughout history. Although Illuminati is one of the popular ones. I'm going to read you guys something. I'm going to read you something in a minute that, for me, it was a jaw dropper, especially when you hear the context about where it came from. But at the end of the day, that quote, which came out of Woodrow Wilson's 1913 book, The New Freedom, did not have those. He did not start off that sentence saying, "I am a most unhappy man. I've unwittingly ruined my country." For starters, the place he wrote anything, the place he's most famous for writing is in the book The New Freedom, which came out in 1913.
Okay.
That's the year he became president. And he was president, I think, until 1921. He served 2 terms. So he wouldn't have even had a chance to unwittingly ruin his country yet. So when Christian says there's a lot of disinformation out there, and I've been absolutely caught up in it so many times. I think that's one of the mantras of this show is do your own research.
You gotta
come to your own conclusions. Don't believe any one of us. Don't believe me. Don't believe Howard. Don't believe any one person.
You can believe me.
To get your own answers, though, is the point.
Yeah, it's hard because when you discuss some of these things with my friends who have not committed to finding the truth, they're smart, but they haven't made the commitment to it. The only way, they're like, well, how do you know? It's like, well, because when I research something, I got some standby websites that I go to. There are some places I go to that have established credibility with me, and I'll kind of go through them and do the things and research the topics we're talking about. But then I have to go to the websites that I completely disagree with to see what their take is. You have to look at both sides of the story to get to the middle of it. especially when it comes to an issue or an opinion.
Yeah. I'm going to read you something here in a sec. What I was saying with that newspapers.com site, it's interesting because you plug in a keyword inside of there and you're pulling up results that I've never seen on Google. And there is something so enlightening, edifying, however you want to say it, educational, about reading newspaper articles about current events from back in the day, as they wrote about them, as they there's so much more than having some prettified newscaster sum up and give us a cliff notes on historical events, which, like Christian said, you got to be careful what you trust. What I've come to figure out more so than not is don't trust your television set. That, I think, is where most of the misinformation comes from.
And the longer it goes on, the less you can trust it. Television now is so much less, trustworthy than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. It just gets worse and worse. It gets more and more outlandish.
Right. It's not a new concept because, we can go back to the days of Andrew Jackson where he's talking about how the media is, a puppet of the elite and you can never trust what you read in there.
Right.
The quote I was referring to by Woodrow Wilson, now this is a real quote and it's cited. I put my name on this one. He writes, this is from his book, A New Freedom. Now this is the quote that had typically on the internet, it's led off with, I'm a most unhappy man, I've unwittingly ruined my country. That is not actually written in the book, at least nowhere near this section. But this section stands alone where he writes, a great industrial nation is controlled by its system of credit. Our system of credit is concentrated. He's talking about the banking industry.
Right.
The growth of the nation, therefore, and all other activities are in the hands of a few men. We have come to be one of the worst ruled, one of the most completely controlled and dominated governments in the civilized world. No longer a government by free opinion, no longer a government by conviction and the vote of the majority, but a government by the opinion and duress of a small group of dominant men. Now, that hasn't changed. These guys have had that sort of power since the early 1900s and much earlier. And it's interesting when you read the articles from the day as they were written in the day.
Right. How the English language has evolved or devolved.
You can see that these guys, they're basically, it's just the same old trick played over and over and over on a new audience. It's like a magician that he doesn't evolve to do new tricks. He just knows he'll have a new audience in a week, and all the old tricks will work on this new audience in spite of all the warnings and all the,
what was the year the Federal Reserve Act? When was that?
1913.
1913. And wasn't it right around, when was World War I?
Well, it would have started in Europe, I'm going to say 1914, 1915, 16, and we got involved, I think, in 1917 or 18.
Okay.
But I'm not a World War I historian.
Because I don't have my CFR notes with me, but I am relatively certain that the origins of the CFR coincide with the Federal Reserve Act.
Wouldn't surprise me. Like, we didn't know it at the time, but the passing of that Federal Reserve Act really meant that we lost the Revolutionary War from the late 1700s. I mean, that was the very tyranny we were trying to get away from. We even have, even to this day, constitutional laws that prohibit any private entity, and that's what the Federal Reserve is. It is actually a private corporation owned by 300 members comprising 13 families, and you can trace their heritage literally all the way back to the Caesars of Rome. This is the synagogue of Satan. This is the money power. This is one of the horns of the beast of Revelation, as as I found out. In fact, I'm going to read you something. So I found this on newspapers.com. This is from a newspaper. And it is...
Imagine that.
I know. It is from... I'm not going to tell you the year or the paper, but
Okay.
I'm going to have you guess it,
Oh, do I get 3 choices?
just for the fun of it. I'm going to read you a few.
At least I don't have to compete against anybody. Odds are I'll win.
Now, I think it was off air last week when we were talking about the protocols of the learned elders of Zion. Are you familiar with this?
Vaguely. I think that's more DiBiase than me.
So it's a document, and when I read this document, it's creepy. Like it is, it gives you the heebie-jeebies reading it. It is basic. It's evil, absolutely, and it is basically a map of how to take over the world without the world knowing it, essentially. Now, I firmly believe that this is literally a demonic document, and somewhere along the way, someone added of Zion at the end, the protocols of the learned elders. I think that's what it really is, because this is, I mean, this is anti-biblical stuff. They threw the of Zion, I think, to help create, yet one, some confusion. 2, a lot of people have bought into the concept that the Jews are the ones that are really running the world. They're really the Illuminati. And it would be just like the Illuminati to have the religion Jesus grew up in, Jewish, be blamed for the stuff that they themselves are doing. I mean, that's how this is what they've done all throughout history. So,
since the 1770s, right?
And even earlier. All right. So a couple fun things I'm going to share with you guys. So I'm going to read a few passages. This is from an article. It's titled "The Jewish Peril," and I just want you to tell me what magazine. Hopefully, I don't give it away while I'm reading it. What magazine or newspaper? This is an international newspaper. This article was written by the editor of this paper. The paper is a household name. It is everyone knows it. So I just want you to tell me what paper you think it is and what year you think this was written.
Okay.
A considerable stir has been caused in the political... there's some words here that are really faded out because this is the original document. In the political circles of Europe by the publication of an amazing pamphlet entitled The Jewish Peril. This pamphlet, which has a subheading of Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, professes to reveal a plot formulated by a Jewish secret society for the overthrow of Christendom and the establishment through the most lavish expenditure of blood and gold of a Jewish world despotism, essentially a dictatorship.
Right.
One of the most a dictatorship of the most intolerant description. It is not possible to read very deeply into this pamphlet before becoming aware that the ideals are those of an old friend. This is now the editor of a paper talking about this. The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, to put it quite briefly, are instinct with the doctrine of Adam Weishaupt, founder of the Illuminati. Interesting now that the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion and Adam Weishaupt are linked, because I do believe this is more of a Illuminati, as in demonically guided group, than Jews in pre-Israel Europe, because Israel hadn't even formed as a nation yet. So this editor considers Adam Weishaupt an old friend. Hint. The Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, to put it quite briefly, are instinct with the doctrine of Adam Weishaupt and of the extraordinary organization which displayed so remarkably and so sinister a part in the French Revolution and in the Terror. So this document was used, the ideals in it, the to-do list in it was used to cause the French Revolution.
Okay.
Now, French history, to me, you can't come up with a more boring subject, in my opinion. All I know is the French have given us mayonnaise and essentially handed us
croissants, dude.
The last baton
Croissants.
of us, every war we've been in, from Vietnam to World War II, you name it.
I would read French history over watching golf on television, though, just to be fair.
All right. Now, it's actually the French Revolution is actually critical, and I'm just starting to learn about it. But its links between, you need to do your own homework on what the Vatican had to do with the French Revolution, how it affected the Vatican, and why it was such a big deal, the overthrow of that government and a new system coming into place. When you start to learn a little bit about what happened in the French Revolution in the 1700s, you see that, again, it's the same plan being played here on the United States. This article goes on to say, now, for the moment, it is not necessary to plunge into the thorny question as to whether the Jewish peril of today is as much delusion of its prophets as was the yellow peril in its day. Now, I'm not sure what the yellow peril was, but perhaps that was some Indo-Chinese.
It had to be.
And maybe if Kenny or someone does some Johnny-on-the-spot research, we can figure that out. Now, this is what brought me to this article, because this quote was originally attributed to Woodrow Wilson.
Okay.
The next line reads, "What is important to dwell upon is the increasing evidence of the existence of a secret conspiracy throughout the world for the destruction of organized government and the letting loose of evil. People are apt to smile with incredulous tolerance at the mention of the word witchcraft." Now he just brought witchcraft. So, Protocols, Learned Elders of Zion. I'm only 1.5 paragraphs into this article. He's mentioned Adam Weishaupt. He has mentioned false flags, and now he's bringing witchcraft into it. But witchcraft, when it is understood in the psychology of evil, is not I can't read that. It's not the something of aged harridans on broomsticks, but the impulse to do evil for the sake of evil in the human consciousness. All right, and then we fast forward down. This editor goes on to write, "Anybody who will for a moment turn to the outpourings of Adam Weishaupt and the Illuminati may satisfy himself of that. That is, that there is a conspiracy. The theory that the end justifies the means for Weishaupt had inherited from the ex-Jesuits." Weishaupt was an ex-Jesuit, interesting. And in this article, it is termed by this editor as Weishaupt being assisted in forming his new order. Okay. I could read more, but any gut on what publication you think that was and what year?
Okay. Well, it says the yellow peril was the supposed danger of Oriental hordes overwhelming the West. And they say that it was a widely held fear in the early 19th and 20th century. So that helps me with when this article may have been written. Now, it also says that the precursor to the yellow peril was the yellow terror. This was initially used to denote the deadly yellow fever, also sometimes known as American plague, an outbreak in 1878. So we're going to say, and you said the yellow peril, though, right?
I think you said of the prior century.
Okay.
Sorry, buddy.
Okay, so that tells me it's the 20th century. So I'm going to say, well, first of all, I'm going to say it was the New York Times. Did I get the paper right?
No. The paper was the Christian Science Monitor.
Oh, my.
Year?
Year 1949.
1920. To close out the article, the editor, what's this cat's name? I'll find it for you in a minute. It is perfectly clear, then, that no matter who may be responsible for the Jewish peril, the fact remains that the propagation of the ideal of evil for the sake of evil exists as a theory of political degeneracy which can find expression in high politics. He's saying that you can find evidence of this plan in high politics in the most unlooked-for ways and unexpected quarters. The human mind jeers at the theory of mental manipulation, yet prominent politicians, philosophers, and soldiers are found at critical moments giving expression to views of an absolutely non-moral description which are not in accordance with their behavior in ordinary life. I think that's sort of his way of saying that the masses at times get brainwashed and do things that they would normally never not do if there weren't a
And you said this guy's who? What was the guy's name? Who is he to anybody? Did we get that?
He was the editor-in-chief of the Christian Science Monitor in 1920, and I found him because what was all over the internet is Woodrow Wilson's quote turned out to be from this guy. So hang on, I'll get you his name in 1 second.
While you look that up, I do have more information that I think you might find interesting on the yellow peril. Yellow peril, you want to take a guess at who invented the yellow peril? That who first uttered that phrase, that who coined that phrase?
Thomas Jefferson.
Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany in 1895 invented the phrase yellow peril in an effort to interest other European empires in the perils they faced in their invasions of China. To that end, the Kaiser of Germany used the Japanese military victory in the Russo-Japanese War 1904-1905 to evoke racialist fear among the white peoples of Western Europe by misrepresenting Imperial Japan as an ally of China who jointly would overrun the Western world.
Kind of sounds like how we think of Al-Qaeda today.
Pretty
or
much.
ISIS.
Pretty much.
The man's name was Frederick Dixon, editor-in-chief of the Christian Science Monitor from like 1914 to 1923. So it's misattributed to Wilson. Now, there is an article about Woodrow Wilson in that edition. It's from the June 19th, 1920 edition of the Christian Science Monitor on page 6. So it's still strong enough. This guy is an editor of at the time was an
Christian
international
Science?
publication. It was a
Christian
daily
Science
international
isn't doing
news.
as well as it used to, but it's still alive and breathing.
It is. I got another one for you. Do you want another one? Or do you want to take a break?
It's about time to break. Why don't we do another one after break?
Yeah, and actually, it's on my other computer, so I won't even be able to do it. But I'll tell you the gist of it when we get back.
All right, when we get back, we're going to talk more about these kind of things. Down the Rabbit Hole. We'll be back in 5. Welcome back to Down the Rabbit Hole. We're just kind of free-forming it today. We're talking about some interesting quotes that are coming in Dave's upcoming book. He's been doing a lot of work on citations and making sure that he gets it right because, we got to get it right. Otherwise, we'll lose what little credibility we have left, right?
Do we have any?
Oh, depends on what circle you're in.
I stand by everything we've said, especially because we always throw in a disclaimer of, hey, dude.
Well, it's an opinion show. It's opinion. We're just researching topics, forming opinions, and engaging people to research topics and form opinions rather than watch The Bachelor.
Some of these older texts from the early 1800s. And by the way, did you know that the letter F, as in Frank, was essentially used as the letter S? I don't know when the switchover happened, but I've been reading a bunch of documents and books from the 1800s, and makes those things hard to read if you're reading the originals. Thank God some people have actually done some translation work, but it's funny how language evolves.
And they're changing it all the time.
All right.
Someone was probably offended by the fact that an F looked like an S.
Because they're just trying to say the word suck, and instead they're saying
Exactly.
the other bad word, which we haven't sworn today, so maybe we can have a whole...
I think I swore before you got here.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did a little bit.
I was talking about insurance companies. You know how I get.
All right. So, there were two things that two writings I came across, which, they just really struck me about how we are so not doing anything new. One was a book written by a man named Seth Payson, and he was an author and a reverend. He had a book in 1802 that came out. The name of it was Proofs of the Real Existence and Dangerous Tendency of Illuminism. Printed in 1802. Now,
I'm with him on that.
You could read this book today, and it's scary of how much has now come to pass. All of these things that Seth Payson was worried about in the late 1700s, early 1800s, they're now long gone and in place. I mean, those chess pieces have been
I'm sure
moved. That our morality's fallen apart. He saw the future where sexual freedom and children raised by the state or by single-parent families, these things were like unheard of in 1800, and now it's just every day. So he comes out with a book in 1802, and you could just read that book, and both these authors I'm going to talk about, it's interesting, but they both made the same, in the forewords of the book, made the same claim about the same frustrations you and I have, which is the evidence of this conspiracy is right in front of your freaking eyes. Why some people just will not look at it, this guy from the perspective of 1802 couldn't understand why there's some people that will just ignore such an important finding. They just literally will go out of their way to avoid it, which, of course, we run into all the time. I don't know if they had the word cognitive dissonance back then, but when you learn about something that is outside of your belief system, and it's important, like if someone comes to you and says, I swear to God, Santa is real, and he really does have a house at the North Pole. Are you going to get angry at the guy? You going to get upset?
No.
It's outside of your belief system. You're like, whatever. Okay, big deal.
Sweet.
But if you say someone else that we believe is a mythical creature, let's say, no, dude, Satan is real, and there are people in our government that praise him, and the kings of the world literally, they bow down to him, and that is their first religion. That is their first, that is what they are loyal to, not countries or flags. Now, if I go and say something like that, people get angry. They get upset. Now, when that happens, understand that is cognitive dissonance, because now you've said something that is outside their belief system, and it's important. At the end of the day, who cares if Santa's... I mean, it doesn't impact our lives. But if this piece of information is important, it means everything. I mean, it means you got to change how you view the world, how you... if you even pray to a god, if you... it means that there is an afterlife. It means that there's a spiritual component to the events going on around us. It makes you get your head out of the sand a little bit, or some people to this day
Put your head
choose
in deeper.
Like these 1800 guys from the 1800s had the exact same. Human nature has not changed. They had the exact same problem back then, and I can see it now where somewhere in the Bible it's written, "There's nothing new under the sun." We are nothing, but we're just. This record has just been going around and around and around. The technology has increased, which provides both opportunities and problems for these dark forces.
But I think as a race, we do get dumber as time passes, because the advent of the on-demand world, you can just Google and get answers. There's someone else's answers, but you can get an answer to a question. And if you're not willing to put in the time to research that answer is actually accurate, and that becomes your belief, and it's wrong, you're stupid.
Well, there are. I view the spectrum of knowledge, and on one end of the spectrum, you've got people that they believe all the wrong theories. Now, I'm not going to say what's wrong, what's right, or whatever.
Right.
My point is their belief system, their knowledge is a bunch of stuff that actually is not true. Now, we've gone through and found in many places, in science books, history books, archaeological books, that what they teach or what we've learned through mainstream media, through television, through schooling, just is not the real truth. So on one end of that spectrum, you've got people that are filled with all the wrong information. And that's where I put us, the United States, most of the world, frankly. Anyone that has a television set really is it's the greatest weapon these evil forces have ever put out there. And there's a reason why China wants to give a television set to every single...
Heck yeah.
Because guess what? That television set just became your warden. You don't realize that you've just entered prison of your mind, and it's going to start to eat away at your freedom, and with the esoteric agenda, the hidden agenda, which is at the end of the day, someone wants something more than your freedom. They want your soul. And that's where this stuff starts to get really scary, and that's where it starts to get biblical. So it's interesting. I'm looking at the cover of this book, and it has the name you'd expect from a researched manuscript from the 1800s, Proofs of the Real Existence and Dangerous Tendency of Illuminism. Now, by the time this was put out in 1802...
Just rolls off your tongue, doesn't it?
No, it took me a while to get it down, because that's not how I would have titled it, but I wasn't alive back then. And no, none of us were alive. We are not reincarnated. You were not Abraham Lincoln. You're only one. It's just you, and you only live on this earth one time.
I feel like Abraham Lincoln, though.
Yeah.
Don't hate speech against me.
So here's what's interesting. So at this point, this evil cabal, which they were introduced to us by Jesus Christ as the synagogue of Satan. And also this, beyond just the synagogue of Satan, there is these bloodline families that ultimately they were the Caesars of Rome. They were, and the human elements of the families, they literally converse and have interaction with spiritual entities. The Bible would call these demons. And enough people have defected out of these groups to just flat out, they all say the same incredible thing, which is, yes, we're telling you, demons materialize. These things are in our plane. They're interactive, and there's a ton of them, billions of them, and they're invisible to our senses unless you do a few things, which I don't want to get into because it's satanic, frankly. So in this book, and I don't know if it was Seth Payson or if it was it Henry Ketz? Who was the other guy that wrote it? Talking about this term Illuminati, which now had only been in play for not a very long time. People think that Adam Weishaupt...
30, 40 years at that point.
Right. I think Adam Weishaupt, whose picture, by the way, that's not George Washington on our $1 bill. It's actually a picture of Adam Weishaupt. When you see his portrait in the one on the dollar bill, it again, just another indication of who's really running things. It's not like he invented the world conspiracy. He didn't invent the Illuminati. All he did was take the same rituals that had been growing through these secret and organized societies, the secret societies, the Knights Templar, the Order of the Rose. They've had a million names. He basically put a one big-ass banner on them saying Illuminati as an ideology. But even people that are in the Illuminati wouldn't necessarily recognize themselves. Oh, I'm an Illuminati member. I mean, nowhere is there like a business card that says, certified Illuminati member. However, if you're a member of the Bilderberg Group or the Council on Foreign Relations, or you're advancing very well through your secret Freemasonic whatever organization, it's a sign that you are in them or you're being used by them. I wouldn't want to be in your shoes if you're doing it on purpose because the price just isn't worth it. And there's no getting off the hook for being ignorant either. God was totally clear about this. So it's interesting that a couple decades after this thing called the Illuminati starts surfacing in early American government, tied very much to a specific ideology called Jacobinism, which I need to get more familiar with, but even George Washington had openly acknowledged and discussed these things as just a matter of fact, not like some hidden secret as it is today.
Right.
And here again, the explosion of the internet and the sharing of information has both been helpful and a detriment to these powers because, A, now people have anyone can access anything. I mean, I'm reading books written in 1800 that I never would have even heard of.
Right, if not for this research.
But by the same token, it is so easy to mimic, counterfeit, and confuse because you throw a few images and a neat quote and you make it look official, and you've got people chasing, they're chasing their tails. Mm-hmm. This was Seth Payson's comment in his foreword. He wrote in 1802, "I have no hope of convincing those who have had access to the evidence here referred to, but for reasons best known to themselves have rejected it, nor the many who have presumed to give judgment on it without examination." And it's basically saying, dude, the information's right there. Do your own research. I don't know why people aren't doing it. And you're literally playing with fire. Literally playing with fire if you think it's something you can deal with sometime, later. So there was another guy. His name was Henry Kett. This guy wrote a book in 1800 called History, the Interpreter of Prophecy, or A View of Scriptural Prophecies and Their Accomplishments in the Past and Present Occurrences of the World. Again, I don't know why no one took labeling and titling classes back in the 1800s, but that one's a mouthful. Now, this one's going to be included in there's a couple things that are going to be included in there. Henry Kett, 1800, Oxford-educated guy. He served as one of the King of England's, he was on His Majesty's Preachers at Whitehall panel. I mean, this is high-level theological and clergy. I mean, this is as high as it gets. So in there, he writes the facts he's referring to that I'm about to say are talking about the Illuminati, their existence, and what they're all about. And he said, "And these facts have clearly shown that a conspiracy was actually formed for the extinction of Christianity and the abolition of government and social order by a set of men whose names demand the execration of mankind." So he does not view them very favorably.
Yeah, it doesn't sound very favorable.
I'll read you the passage that is going to be included in the book. The Oxford-educated fellow rose to serve the King of England as one of His Majesty's preachers at Whitehall. His little-known book is astounding in the claim that the same Illuminati we know today are the same ones he was referencing in this quote from over 200 years ago. The same people who would be behind this coming worldwide conspiracy, which he talked about in his book. These people are going to fool everyone. Now, he's in 1800. He is making a link between 90 AD, when Jesus showed up to John the Revelator and said, here's what's going to happen at the end. He gives all the signs of what's going to happen at the end. He talks about how Satan's going to try and get the whole world into a one-world government. There will be this corrupt group of people known as the Synagogue of Satan. It would seem that he's talking about one of the 10 horns of Revelation. It's one of the beasts. No, a beast is not like a lion or a tiger. Revelation is written in code. Earlier in the Bible, the code is broken down. A beast is a system. It's a government. And these people certainly are an organized ruling body. This is quite prophetic for 1800, until you read further and realize he's claiming Adam Weishaupt's Illuminati is one of the beasts of Revelation. Now, he's talking about a group that was only in its infancy, supposedly, in 1800. But flash forward to anyone that is well-read, and this group is now on the verge of a world checkmate. And a lot of people are preparing for that. Kett defines this burgeoning group as one of the beasts of Revelation, in reference to the warnings Jesus Christ gave to John the Revelator around 90 AD. This conclusion, after much research on his part, can be found in Kett's 1800 book, The Interpreter of Prophecy. This is another guy like J.C. Ryle, who, this is what I mean, read from the perspective of people that were writing in their day. Don't just read what Megyn Kelly, how she summarizes what people had to say in 1800. You're going to miss all the important stuff. So the other thing that I thought was interesting was on the cover of Seth Payson's book. And let me get back to that one. I'm looking at this, and it's a photocopy of the actual book that went into print in 1802. Yellowed, curled pages. I mean, it's an old... And right on the cover, there is right underneath the title of the book, which again is Proofs of the Real Existence and Dangerous Tendency of Illuminism. Okay? Whatever Illuminism was, it was relatively new, that word, and certainly the ideas behind it, maybe not so new, but the term was new to some of these early, I don't put them in the class of founding fathers, but they were certainly the ass-kicking guys that cleared a path for everyone else. I mean, they were the early Americans. And there's a quote right underneath the title from Revelation 16:14, but it's only part of the 16:14 quote. And on the cover of his 1800 book, right after he says, we're basically going to talk about how dangerous these Illuminists are, he's got the portion of Revelation which says, "For they are spirits of devils." Now, the whole passage reads, from the NIV version, "They are demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the world." So these demonic spirits, now this is the book of Revelation telling us this warning was given to us in 90 AD. He said these demonic spirits would be in touch with the kings of the world. Now, I think that could include presidents. I think it could also include some musical performers, some entertainers.
The most influential people
military
in the world.
people. Exactly. And then when you when you fast forward to modern day and you actually see the kings of the world gathered at a place like, what's that, San Francisco? Bohemian Grove, where they actually perform, there's a question about whether they perform a human sacrifice or not. Now, when they walk out of there, they don't deny that they're doing anything about human sacrifices. What they deny is that, well, we didn't really sacrifice a human. It was just a mock sacrifice. That's what presidents and guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and that's what they say walking out of this, okay? Now, what is going on in your life that you would even be at a mock human sacrifice? But I don't think it's a mock sacrifice because too many people have defected out of those groups to say, no, man, they actually sacrifice a human. So here's this thing that we've now observed literally on camera through current modern-day eyewitness testimony, going back to a very specific warning in roughly 90 AD that Jesus gave about the real structure of power in the world. And here, to link us between 90 AD and the year 2016, here's this manuscript that's 220-some years old that, it's not all the way in the middle, but the claim of what these guys really are and what they really are, it's a secret hidden in plain sight. It's just sitting there for anyone to look up. I mean, we're too busy because we're watching reality shows. But the full passage from Revelation reads, "They are demonic spirits that perform signs." And in other places, God warned that, look, demons can do signs. They can look like creatures of light. A lot of people are going to be deceived. Mary Baker Eddy, Christian Science Monitor, she came up with her slightly divergent Christianity, the new take on it, which is essentially that religion, came to her from spirit guides that she'd channeled. So, yeah, I'd trust that. They're demonic spirits that perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the world to gather them for the battle on the great day of God Almighty. Now, what day is that? Do you know what day that is?
I'm assuming the rapture. The return,
well, depending on...
when he returns in the air?
Yeah, this I think this is referencing Armageddon, which a lot of people...
Or the day of wrath?
The more I read, I'm not reading that 200 million man armies are destroying each other. I actually think whether even the highest ranking military leaders of some of the countries in play today, they themselves may not understand that, in a sense, they are spoken about in the book of Revelation. But it sounds more like all the advanced technology we have, everything we've got, every soldier on Earth. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of millions. It says there's going to be over 200 million. I think they're actually going to try and do battle against something coming out of the sky. Now, they won't think it's Jesus, because if they thought that, I doubt they'd be shooting at him.
Right.
They're going to be most likely under the impression that whatever's coming out of the sky is not good. It's evil. It's from another planet. They're going to take us over. It's it's Satan. Whatever. But if you really coordinate all of the secret dark projects that are at work, are just unending perseverance trying to break into other dimensions, trying to break down some of the building blocks of life, a lot of this stuff can so easily be weaponized, certainly against humans. Mm-hmm. But I wonder what it would take to kill a spirit. God seems to have that ability. I think Jesus does too. But I don't know if,
I dated a chick that killed my spirit once.
Yeah? What was the other line I was going to take? Well, so I thought that was interesting that I'm going to keep...
Is it even possible? I mean...
What?
To kill a spirit.
Well, it certainly is possible, because if you believe God's words, he's going to kill all of the fallen spirits. Their existence.
Well, he can, but we can't.
Right. I don't know if we can. I mean, we need some sort of plasma antimatter blaster. I'm making this up. I don't know, but it's Guns will not work against these things, there's no doubt. And why is this stuff important? You know, why? I get asked this a lot. Why should I worry about something that may never happen, and it's just doom and gloom, and it's all scary, and, you know, life's been fine for 50 or 60 years. The way I look at it is this. It might not happen in our lifetime. Maybe it'll be your child's lifetime. Maybe it'll be your grandkid's lifetime. But I promise you, whatever you're teaching your heirs, your descendants, that will be carried forward. Now, for personal reasons, I do think this thing that has been talked about all throughout history is something we're going to see in our lifetime. Simply because all of the signs, all of the markers, I can't think of one that's not, as of literally the last 20 or so years, that's not in place right now. All of them are here. The big one was the reestablishment of Israel. That's done. We're within a generation of that still. And I'm not alone. I mean, people that are into this subject matter, you know, there's a reason that companies that sell emergency food supplies are going gangbusters. That ain't going to save you either. Guns aren't going to work, and stored food is not. I mean, these things could help a little bit if a couple of humans try and get at your food stash. So why is this important? Because if you understand the nature of the war we're really in, the only way we're going to be able to combat this, keep these things away from us because apparently they're all going to manifest right about the same time, and it's going to scare the shit out of the whole planet.
People will die. Their hearts will burst in their chest.
Yeah, that was a prediction.
Yeah.
And I totally see it when you see the little pieces of evidence that are, you know, those human-faced bats that are turning up all over the place. Those are the locusts of Revelation. Yeah.
The Dave was talking about.
Now, can you imagine a flock of these things flying into your town? And now these things think. They're sentient. They're human-like.
I'm creeped out by bugs and reptiles, man.
So the people that really understand this and that harness God's power, if I understand this correctly, you're literally with your own voice, you will be able to just ward them away. Yep. They will stay away from you.
You have the most powerful weapon available.
And it's just not an M16 or an AR-15, or it's not what you think it is. The true nature and the highest level of this war, that is the one that the enemy wants hidden from you. And that's the one you got to understand your enemy. How can you fight him if you don't even understand what he's trying to do or how he does it? So for all you guys that think the answer is to, you know, just focus on getting, you know, I got to get my job tomorrow. I got to get my bills paid. I got to watch this show. I got to go to this party. And I'm with you. I love life. But if you don't take time to figure this out, to do a little research on the permanent trip we're all going to be taking at some point, I think we're beyond foolish. I think we're beyond cowardly. I think it's suicidal, and I think you're condemning your family. I mean, to be honest with you, I just think if you were bestowed with this and you did nothing with this knowledge, what does it say about you? I can't imagine. I would not want to face God. You know, if he's like, look, dude, I woke you up, and what'd you do with this? You went hiding. You went and built yourself a shelter. You don't think that all these have you not seen enough caves buried in the earth through all your shows on the History Channel? Yeah, they all try the exact same shit, and the same shit keeps exactly. And here we are again. Again, it's the same thing. It's the DUMBs, deep underground military base, DUMB, DUMBs. There's a network of cities below the surface of the United States, connected by magnetic trains. It's just too many people have talked about it that don't even know each other. I mean, these things are really can house millions of people. I'm sure it was predictive programming or foreshadowing of movies like Deep Impact, Black President, asteroid coming to Earth. They can save a couple million people, you know, head to the caves. These things have been being built since the late 40s. Think about that. Right around the time Roswell happened and these talks of aliens started popping up, which brings me to a connector point that involves Douglas MacArthur. Do you know what Douglas MacArthur and aliens have to do with each other?
I do not.
Does it surprise you that Douglas MacArthur and aliens would be mentioned in the same sentence?
No, because he was high up in the military.
Well, he was
general.
He was the second most powerful man in the U.S. Army. He was General Joint Chiefs of Staff. He was, who would have been the general above him? But he basically was reporting to presidents and running in their circles. Interesting that such a highly regarded war hero was fired by Harry S. Truman. That's one of the things that made him famous. So that firing / retiring, whatever you want to call it, was, I think, 1951. And starting in about 1955 through at least 1962, now he died in 1964, this mega decorated 5-star U.S. Army general, World War II hero, he was the guy that made that comment, "I shall return." Yeah. He made it famous when he promised to come back to the Philippines to ultimately liberate the Philippines from the Japanese, and he made good on his promise about 2.5 years after American forces were driven out to sea. That, of course, led to the Bataan Death March. We had about 100,000 soldiers in Japanese war camps, and these people were absolutely brutal to our soldiers, as we probably are to the guys in Guantanamo. I mean, at the end of the day, we're not, we are what we are.
I don't know.
So he's giving a speech. This is one of... in fact, the National Archives, they call this speech General Douglas MacArthur's farewell speech. And he gave it to the graduating class at...
West Point, right?
Yep. Okay. This was May 12th, 1962. And in the portion of this speech... Now, you got to understand this guy. This is essentially... was essentially the highest military commander possible. He was a war hero. He says this, and this wasn't the only time he said it. He said this in a number of places. We'll talk about those in a sec, but like Life magazine, Time magazine, and interviews. Now, to this particular graduating class, and this is documented, he's about 2/3 of his way through, and he goes into this. He says, "We deal now not with things of this world alone, but with the illimitable distances and as yet unfathomed mysteries of the universe. We are reaching out for a new and boundless frontier." So far, so good. "We speak in strange terms of harnessing the cosmic energy, of making winds and tides work for us." That's 1962. He's talking about weather modification. Now, that's popped up in some Senate hearings that we talked about.
In the 60s as well.
To continue on, of making winds and tides work for us, of creating unheard of synthetic materials to supplement or even replace our old standard basics, of purifying seawater for our drink, of mining ocean floors for new fields of wealth and food, of disease preventatives to expand life into the hundreds of years, of controlling the weather for a more equitable distribution of heat and cold, of rain and shine, of spaceships to the moon, of the primary target in war, no longer limited to the armed forces of an enemy, but instead to include his civil populations, of ultimate conflict between we deal now not with things of this world. And the last one he says, I'll just go ... But we are dealing with an ultimate conflict between a united human race and the sinister forces of some other planetary galaxy, of such dreams and fantasies as to make life the most exciting of all time. Pretty out there statement for someone that is in our highest
level.
level.
Can you imagine being a cadet in the audience?
You know what? When people hear that, I think it just goes over their head. I just don't think it registers. General Mark Milley just this year talked about literally how his armies have to be prepared or have been preparing to fight little green men. He said those words, little green men. And it's not like these are the only, it's not like, hey guys, it's not like you become a member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and then you go wacko and start talking about aliens. Did it ever occur to you that the people that actually talk about this, they actually know what they're talking about, and the ones that don't want you to know just make it look like they're just not credible, or they suddenly went crazy? Right. Why do they always go crazy and say the exact same thing? Aliens. I mean, this is 1962.
Maybe that's the definition of crazy.
Well,
if you think there are aliens, you're crazy. This is, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
Whether you believe in God
you're
or
right.
not,
You're right. I mean, there's too much of it. There's too much of it. These people are unconnected, other than in ways other than what they're a part of. Be it the military, be it the government, or something like that. But they have no. These are totally normal people, and then the next thing you know, they're making these bold statements. How many credible, honorable, distinguished people is it going to take to make these statements before people start to listen?
Yeah.
Obviously a few more. A few more than have already come out.
Well, look, I'm not scrambling to fill up this book with quotes. I'm scrambling to just keep the best ones, because what I'm at, and I've learned this myself. I mean, I guess I didn't realize how pervasive this warning has been throughout all of history.
No, I'm kind of shocked to hear you bring up the stuff from 200 and some years ago, and it's like they're talking about today. They're saying the exact same thing.
Here's another thing MacArthur said. And this one was in 1957. It was a speech he gave. I want to say that this was actually an annual stockholders meeting of the Rand Corporation, another one of those ugly organizations, secret government contractor tied with the CIA, blah, 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 blah. This is 1957. And he says, our government has kept us in a perpetual state of fear, kept us in a continuous stampede of patriotic fervor, with the cry of grave national emergency. Always there has been some terrible evil at home, or some monstrous foreign power that was going to gobble us up if we did not blindly rally behind it by furnishing the exorbitant funds demanded. Yet in retrospect, these disasters seem to have never happened. They seem to have never been quite real. So we actually on this show talked about the Yellow Terror.
Yeah.
Now, he's writing, this is now 1957. We are now afraid of the communists, and the McCarthyism is about to get started, mm-hmm. and this is now the Red Terror. But, you could read that today. They're using the same playbook, except now it's ISIS and Al-Qaeda in the Middle East and terrorism. But when you actually research those things, and I'll speak as an expert on 9/11, Osama bin Laden did not. Now, he may have been involved somewhere along the way because, he was a member of the CIA. Figure that out, folks. He was on the payroll of the CIA for who knows how long. And funny how all these lone crazed gunmen also always used to work for the Central Intelligence Agency, like Lee Harvey Oswald, Timothy McVeigh, but whatever. It's the same playbook over and over, just new faces, new names, new era. Since then, we've had terrorism scares, Cold War scares. There's always something. We're always building bunkers in our yard for something, at least, in the modern era.
Well, they have to keep us distracted, right?
Yeah, I think that's one of MacArthur's ways of saying so many generals, like Smedley Butler did the same thing, Admiral Richard Byrd did the same thing. They basically, after a lifetime of service, they just come to this conclusion that, holy cow, I was basically just a thug for the banking powers. I mean, and we will actually have some of those specific comments, some of those specific quotes. But I'm learning a ton finding the citations, seeing a bunch of misleading information. But here's the other interesting thing I found. So you go back and find a quote, you look one up on Google, and very often you'll find a picture of John F. Kennedy next to a quote. And what I've been finding a lot lately, more and more, are people that have taken the time to actually go and prove something was not said. Now, if you really think about it, it's almost impossible to prove something Kennedy did not say, because we just don't have access to all of his.
Right.
We weren't there to listen. Not all of his written records are online. You can't go from not finding evidence, jumping to the conclusion that he never said it. And I see those well-produced, artistic, graphically pleasing. I mean, this is like propaganda material where I'll do a lookup for a quote, and already Google is telling me on the second or third search result, it's been debunked.
Yeah.
Woodrow Wilson was one of them. Someone almost wrote a frickin' paper saying that conspiracy theorists are idiots. Anyone that believes that Woodrow Wilson said this or was referring to the central bankers, they're crazy. He wasn't. He never said these words. It's not in this book. This guy cited it wrong.
Well, again, that's what you get for Googling your answers.
So normally that might have even stopped me from looking further.
Yeah.
But now, because I need to see this with my own eyes,
Right.
actually in print in a book, I'll look for it nonetheless. And I can't tell you how many times, relatively easily, I've actually found it in its original document. So I'm like, this dude that's quote-unquote debunking what I just found, he probably spent 5 to 10 hours making this presentation, this graphic, this article, but in 5 or 10 minutes you can actually debunk him.
Right, but his agenda is to
Confuse. It's to
Just
dissuade. He's what I would call he's a pen keeper.
Yeah.
Once you start looking into other conspiracies, you're aware of one or two. They don't try and make you feel stupid for knowing about those one or two, but they're going to keep you in that pen. They don't want you to link up 9/11 to Sandy Hook or to JFK, because if you start to do that, you start to see these uncanny similarities in how these operations go down and how they're used to dupe the public. It's the same story. The news is always pre-printed. The story's rewritten before it even happens. There's always drills and tests going on. There's always a fall guy. There's always the crazed nut.
lone.
Because if it's not a lone nut that did it,
Then it's a conspiracy.
then it means, see, if you, once you remove, and all you have to do is look at the evidence, and Lee Harvey Oswald, I doubt he pulled a trigger on that day. Was he involved with the people that killed Kennedy? Yes. Was he there as a
But I
bad
don't think he
guy,
was a
or was he
conspirator.
there as a good guy? That's to be determined. Some people from inside Kennedy research have said that they discovered that he was a snitch early on, and that's why they made him the patsy, unbeknownst to him, until probably moments after Kennedy was shot, things started to go wrong. He figured out, I'm the guy there.
I'm in trouble.
So that's why the lone crazy gunman thing had to, because if it wasn't that, if we couldn't dismiss this unbelievable historic event to random psychosis, if it indeed was a pre-planned, coordinated event, i.e. a conspiracy, it means that you now have to go looking at why. Why would they want to kill President Kennedy?
Right.
And there are 4 or 5 controversial
and
things.
If you think it's bad that they actually did kill him, the reasons are just that much worse.
A lot of things changed in this country, which that was the beginning of modern day conspiracy.
Yep.
That cabal has been in, I call it overt power. They sound like they're not even hiding themselves anymore. And 9/11 was just another of thousands upon thousands of operations they pulled off throughout history. They're going on all over the world constantly, even as we speak. Their system is so much broader than anyone could imagine. They're very real.
And that alone is how they get away with it, because it's unimaginable.
That's what Hoover said. This conspiracy is so big, a regular guy he ain't going to get it.
Well, the good news is we come back every week to talk about it.
So far, no cars have blown up on us yet.
Yeah, we haven't blown anything up yet, so we're going to be back next week. Guys from Happy Hour up next. Have a good week, Kenny. This has been Down the Rabbit Hole. To God be the glory.